You likely spend thousands of dollars on dentists and hours every year scrubbing your teeth with plastic brushes and chemical pastes. If you stop for even a few days, your mouth feels like a disaster zone. But if you traveled back nearly 2 million years ago, you would find ancient humans with teeth that were remarkably healthy, without a single drop of fluoride or a dental appointment. These ancestors were not using toothbrushes, yet their dental records are so well preserved that they are currently helping scientists solve the mystery of our origin. It seems backward that our advanced civilization has more dental problems than people who lived in caves. This is because the way cavemen cleaned their teeth was actually a byproduct of a massive biological revolution that started with a single flame. Finding out how ancient humans lived is one of the hardest puzzles in history because most evidence simply disappears over time. Ash blows away in the wind. Rain washes away organic material. This makes the archaeological record look like a book with most of its pages ripped out. Determining when humans first began using complex tools or changing their habits is difficult because the evidence is often subtle and nearly impossible to detect. The world nearly 2 million years ago was a brutal environment for a creature without claws or sharp teeth. Our ancestors lived in a state of extreme stress while facing freezing temperatures and powerful predators. They did not have pharmacies or coping mechanisms. They had to rely entirely on their physical biology and whatever they could find on the savanna. Because of this, their teeth were their most important survival tool. The evolution of our teeth was not an accident, but a specific response to the environment. About 220 million years ago, the first mammals appeared and began a radical change in dental structure. Unlike earlier creatures, mammals developed teeth that were fully differentiated into incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. This allowed your ancestors to process a much wider variety of foods with precision. By the time primates diverged about 66 million years ago, the brain began to expand and sight became the primary sense. As our specific lineage moved toward the genus Homo, our dental anatomy continued to shift. Early ancestors like Australopithecus afarensis, who lived nearly 4 million years ago, already showed a reduction in canine size compared to other apes. They were moving away from using their teeth as weapons and toward using them as specialized tools for a changing diet. One of the most famous examples of this dental specialization is the ancestor often called the nutcracker. This species had massive jaws and huge molars designed to crush tough, fibrous plants and hard nuts. They were a biological machine built for a specific kind of environment. However, as the climate fluctuated between 2 million and 800,000 years ago, our ancestors had to become more adaptable. They began to include scavenged meat in their diet, which required a different kind of dental maintenance. They were not cleaning their teeth with brushes, but the abrasive nature of their raw, fibrous diet acted as a natural scrubber. The constant chewing of tough materials physically wore down the surfaces of their teeth, which actually prevented some of the plaque buildup we see today. The real shift in dental health happened when our ancestors mastered fire. For a long time, scientists believed that the intentional use of fire was a relatively recent development in human history. But new evidence from Wonderwork Cave in the Kalahari Desert has completely broken that assumption. Researchers found traces of fire use in archaeological deposits dating back as far as 1.79 million years. This discovery pushed back the timeline of fire use by hundreds of thousands of years. They found burned bones deep inside the cave, approximately 30 meters from the entrance. This location is far beyond the reach of natural wildfires, which proves that early humans were deliberately carrying fire into the cave and keeping it burning. This behavior is likely linked to a species called Homo erectus. Mastering fire gave these early humans a massive advantage because it allowed them to cook their food. Cooking is essentially a form of external digestion. Heat breaks down the complex fibers in plants and the tough proteins in meat, which makes nutrients much easier for the body to absorb. This had a direct impact on the teeth of your ancestors. Because their food was now softer and more efficient, they no longer needed the massive jaws or giant teeth of the nutcracker. Over many generations, the physical requirements for chewing raw, tough materials began to disappear. This led to the evolution of smaller teeth and a smaller digestive tract. The energy that was once spent on digestion was now funneled into the expansion of the human brain. However, this transition to cooked food created a new problem for dental health. While the abrasive raw diet of the past kept teeth physically clean, the softer cooked diet allowed food particles to stick to the teeth more easily. This is where we see the very first signs of intentional dental care. Ancient humans were not just passive observers of their own health, they were resourceful and utilized their environment to maintain their tools. While the sources do not explicitly name a brand of toothbrush, they reveal that our ancestors were constantly interacting with materials that served as natural cleaners. They were processing animal bones and using stone tools that required precision and manual dexterity. The act of using their mouths as a third hand for holding materials or cleaning hides likely provided some level of accidental dental hygiene. Scientists today use incredibly advanced technology to study these ancient teeth. They have developed a technique that uses the light-emitting properties of burned bone to detect signs of intense heating. When bones are hit with specific wavelengths of light, they produce a distinctive glow that confirms they were exposed to fire. This luminescence method is non-destructive and allows researchers to analyze fossil collections without causing any damage. They have even analyzed the tiny bones left behind by owls that roosted in caves nearly 2 million years ago. These owl pellets provide a perfect record of the environment and prove that early humans were repeatedly bringing fire into their living spaces. This constant presence of fire and the resulting cooked diet is what truly separated our dental history from the rest of the animal kingdom. Another fascinating discovery comes from the Rising Star Cave System, where researchers found the remains of a species called Homo naledi. They were able to recover genetic material and proteins from teeth that are 300,000 years old. This analysis suggested that the fossils found in one particular area might all be female, which adds a layer of mystery to how those bones ended up deep underground. The fact that proteins and DNA can survive inside a tooth for hundreds of thousands of years shows just how durable these biological structures really are. Your teeth are a vault of information. They record what you eat, where you live, and even the stresses you face during your life. For cavemen, their teeth were a diary of survival that remained intact long after their muscles and skin turned to dust. The dental health of ancient humans was also supported by the absence of one specific thing. They did not have access to processed sugars. For the vast majority of our 2 million-year history, our diet consisted of wild plants, nuts, and meat. This meant that the bacteria in the mouth did not have the fuel they needed to create the acidic environments that cause cavities. Our modern struggle with tooth decay is largely a result of a massive mismatch between our ancient biology and our modern environment. We evolved to have smaller teeth and jaws because we learned to cook with fire, but we have now added a layer of high-sugar foods that our teeth were never designed to handle. Our ancestors were not necessarily better at cleaning their teeth. They simply had a biological system that was in perfect harmony with their natural diet. So the next time you are brushing your teeth, you should realize that you are maintaining a tool that has been through a 2 million-year evolutionary journey. You are looking at the specialized instruments that allowed your ancestors to grow the brains that eventually invented the toothbrush. You are not just cleaning your mouth, you are caring for a biological record of our survival as a species. The cavemen did not need a dentist because their entire lifestyle, from their abrasive raw diet to their mastery of fire, worked together to keep them healthy. They used fire to stay warm, protect themselves from predators, and revolutionize their nutrition. It turned a vulnerable primate into the dominant force on Earth. This makes you wonder what other ancient secrets are hidden in our biology. If our teeth tell the story of how we ate, what do our bones tell us about how we moved? Like, why did we suddenly decide to stand up and start walking on 2 legs? Click here to find out why your ancestors abandoned the safety of the trees and how it forever changed the shape of your feet.